Hi there. I'm Sarah, a 43-year-old woman living an ordinary life. I want to share a personal story with you, one that involves a crime, and I'll be changing some names and keeping certain locations anonymous, so please understand. It's been tough for me to figure out where to start this story, but I guess it all begins with my mother. She was a deeply troubled woman, and when I was in my 20s, I found out that she had been abandoned by my father when I was young. My dad's last words to her were that he didn't like her because she was ugly and overweight. That comment changed her life forever. From that moment on, she became obsessed with her appearance. She spent most of the money she earned on plastic surgery and even forced me to follow extreme dieting, which led to her not letting me eat much at all. As you can imagine, this created a lot of tension between us. She would say things like, "If you keep eating like this, you'll never find a man to love you. Looks are everything, especially for women. You'll never be attractive if you don't do something about it." She would go on and on about how I should be more like the super skinny models on TV and how my body was too big for anyone to find me desirable. To her, no matter how much I tried to explain that I was healthy, that I wasn't overweight, and that my doctor even told me I was just fine, it was never enough. She would say things like, "Doctors are idiots. Do you think those models are healthy? They're just thin and big-chested, and that's what matters." She kept pushing me to get plastic surgery, suggesting I should get a breast enhancement and even have my jawline reshaped. Of course, all of this made me feel terrible about myself. I was a young woman trying to figure out who I was, and she constantly told me that I was unattractive, as if that was the only thing that mattered. Eventually, I became more and more distant from her. I stopped trying to meet her standards and started to ignore her comments, even though they hurt me deeply. I didn't want to believe that my worth was tied to my looks, but she couldn't understand why I wasn't doing something about it. She was obsessed with me looking perfect, just as she did, and I couldn't stand it. One day, when I was planning to go with my fiancé, Lucas, to get our marriage license, the phone rang. It was my mom. She told me, "You need to check your fiancé's ID right now, quickly." My hands were shaking as I fumbled to open my wallet. When I looked at the ID, I nearly fainted. I couldn't believe what I saw. It wasn't the name or face I expected. I had to get out of the car immediately. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The name and the face on the ID weren't the same as Lucas's at all. It was as if everything I thought I knew about him had been a lie. My heart raced and I could barely breathe. I couldn't process it. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. I quickly snapped the ID back into the wallet and pretended nothing was wrong. I told Lucas I wasn't feeling well and that we should stop at the nearest rest area. We pulled off the highway and I rushed to the bathroom, hoping for a moment to calm down. I could feel my mind racing, questioning everything. Was this some kind of mistake? Was Lucas really someone else? Did he have a secret life I didn't know about? As I stood in the bathroom trying to steady my breath, I kept thinking back to all the little things that had seemed strange over the past few months. The way he was always so secretive about certain things, the odd way he'd talk about his past, and how he never seemed to talk much about his family. He had always been so attentive, so kind, and I had believed he truly loved me for who I was, not just for my looks, which was something my mother never understood. But now, it felt like my world was collapsing around me. I was torn. Should I confront him right then and there, or should I wait and gather more information? But the truth was, I couldn't shake the gut feeling that something wasn't right. And then, I remembered my mother's warning. Check his ID, and you'll find the truth. I walked back to the car, trying to act normal. When I sat down, Lucas didn't seem to notice my panic. He smiled at me and asked if I felt better. I nodded but said nothing. I kept staring at him, trying to figure out how I could ask him about the ID without revealing how shaken I was. It didn't feel right to accuse him without hearing his side first. But deep down, I knew I had to ask, no matter how much I feared the answer. The more I thought about it, the more questions popped into my mind. Why was my mother so insistent about me checking his ID? Was this some sort of setup? Why would Lucas lie about something like this? Was he hiding something much bigger than just a fake identity? I kept quiet as we drove to the registry office. Lucas seemed distracted, but I couldn't tell if it was because he was nervous or if he was hiding something. My anxiety was eating me alive, and I was struggling to focus on anything else. I couldn't stop thinking about the ID. How had it come to this? How had I missed the signs? We reached the registry office and I was still in a daze. I tried to shake off the paranoia, reminding myself that there had to be an explanation. Maybe it was just a mix-up, but deep down, I knew something was terribly off. I couldn't help but feel like I was about to make one of the biggest mistakes of my life. I was supposed to be happy. This was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, but all I felt was dread. I told Lucas I needed a moment to clear my head, and I stepped out of the car. I paced around outside, trying to keep it together. I couldn't make sense of it all. The man I loved, the man I was about to marry, was somehow connected to someone else entirely. What if he wasn't the person I thought he was? I kept thinking about what my mom had said. You can't trust him. You need to find out who he really is. And even though I had always fought my mom's obsession with appearances, deep down, I knew she might be right this time. Something about this whole situation felt wrong, and I wasn't sure I could go through with marrying him if it turned out that he wasn't who he said he was. I went back to the car and sat down, taking a deep breath. I looked at Lucas, and for the first time, I felt like I was looking at a stranger. I had to know the truth. Lucas, I said, my voice trembling slightly, I need to ask you something. Why didn't you tell me about your first marriage? And why is the ID I saw different from the one you've shown me before? His face went pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out at first. I could see the tension in his eyes, the hesitation. That moment felt like it lasted forever. Then, he said, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to lie to you. I just didn't know how to tell you. I was on edge. What do you mean? How long were you married? And why would you hide something like this from me? I didn't know how to explain it, he said, his voice shaky. I was married before, yes, but it ended badly. I had to change everything, including my name, because of the mess that followed. I've tried to move on, but I guess I just didn't know how to tell you the truth. My mind was spinning. I couldn't make sense of what he was saying. He had changed his identity? Why hadn't he told me sooner? Why did it feel like everything was unraveling right in front of me? Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me the truth? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. I didn't want to lose you. I was afraid you wouldn't accept me if you knew about my past. I thought if I kept it hidden, we could have a future together. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, but it wasn't the relief I was expecting. It was more like the pieces of my life were being rearranged in ways I wasn't ready for. I don't know if I can do this, I whispered, my voice cracking. I sat there in stunned silence. I didn't know how to respond. Everything I thought I knew about Lucas, about our relationship, was shifting under my feet. The man who had always seemed so steady, so reliable, was now a stranger to me in many ways. I could feel a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, confusion, all swirling together. Sarah, Lucas said, reaching out his hand toward mine. I pulled back instinctively, not ready to let him comfort me. I know I should have told you sooner. I was scared, but everything I felt for you, everything we've built together, it's real. You have to believe me. I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. You kept something huge from me. I don't even know what to believe anymore. How can I trust you after this? He looked down, his shoulders slumping. I didn't think it would matter. I changed my name and my life because I had to, Sarah. My past. It wasn't just something I could leave behind easily. I didn't know how to bring it up without ruining everything. His words hit me like a ton of bricks. It does matter. You can't just pretend something like that didn't happen. You can't build a relationship on half-truths and expect it to stand. I turned away from him, staring out the car window. My mind raced with questions. What else hadn't he told me? If he'd hidden something this big, could there be other things he was keeping from me too? I took a deep breath and faced him again. Lucas, I need to understand. You said you had to change everything. What exactly happened in your past that made you feel like you had no choice but to hide it from me? His expression was pained. I was married before, but it was a toxic relationship. It ended in a way that left me feeling like I couldn't be myself anymore. I lost everything, my friends, my reputation. I had to start over. I thought if I just became someone new, I could have a fresh start. And then I met you, and you made me believe that it could work, that I could be happy again. I crossed my arms, still unsure. But why didn't you tell me this from the beginning? I would have understood if you had just been honest. Instead, I had to find out like this, by accident, through your ID. Do you have any idea how that feels? Lucas hung his head. I know. I screwed up. I thought I could leave the past behind and just focus on us. I didn't think it would ever come out, and I thought I could spare you the burden. I see now that I was wrong. There was a long silence between us. I could feel the weight of his words, the regret in his voice. Part of me wanted to believe him, to believe that he was just trying to protect me from something painful. But another part of me felt betrayed, like he had taken away my ability to make an informed decision about the person I was marrying. I turned to him, my voice steadier this time. Lucas, I need time to think about all of this. I can't just move forward like nothing happened. This changes everything for me. He nodded, his face etched with sorrow. I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll do whatever it takes to prove that I'm being honest now. I stepped out of the car, needing to clear my head. The air felt heavy, the world around me muted. My mother's words echoed in my mind. Check his ID and you'll find the truth. I hated that she had been right. It felt like a cruel twist of fate that the one time I decided to listen to her, it led me here. I walked around the parking lot, trying to steady my breathing. I thought back to the beginning, to the first time Lucas and I met. He had been so kind, so attentive. He made me feel seen, heard, loved in a way I never had before. But now I couldn't help but wonder, how much of that was real? How much of it was built on a foundation of lies? I stopped walking and looked back at the car. Lucas was still sitting inside, his head in his hands. He looked defeated, broken. My heart ached, but I knew I couldn't ignore what I had learned. I couldn't pretend that his deception didn't matter. No matter how much I cared for him, trust had been shattered, and that wasn't something I could rebuild overnight. I needed time, space, and clarity. I needed to figure out what I wanted, who I wanted to be, and whether I could move forward with someone who had hidden such a big part of themselves from me. For now, all I could do was take things one step at a time and try to find my footing again in a world that suddenly felt very different. As I walked back toward the car, I tried to clear my mind. Lucas was still inside, his head hanging low. I could see him looking up every so often, probably wondering what I was going to do. I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. When I checked, it was another message from my mom. The text was short and straightforward. Told you so. You should have never trusted him. I put my phone away. The last thing I needed right now was another reminder of how right she'd been. Taking a deep breath, I climbed back into the car. Lucas glanced at me, his eyes filled with uncertainty. He didn't say anything, and neither did I. We sat there in silence for a few minutes before he finally spoke. Sarah, he began, his voice hoarse. What can I do to fix this? Tell me what you need me to do. I'll do it. I shook my head slowly. You don't get it, Lucas. It's not just about fixing it. You lied to me about who you are. How am I supposed to just move past that? He looked down at his hands, clearly struggling to find the right words. I didn't mean to lie. I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared that if you knew everything, you'd leave me. And I love you, Sarah. I didn't want to lose you. His words hit me hard. I believed that he loved me. At least I thought I did. But his love didn't change the fact that he'd hidden such a huge part of his life. I needed time to think, to figure out if I could still trust him, and if our relationship could survive this. I need space, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. I need time to process everything. Right now, I don't know if I can do this. Lucas reached out as if to touch my hand, but he stopped himself. I understand, he said quietly. I'll give you all the time you need. Just please, don't shut me out completely. I nodded but didn't say anything more. I opened the car door and stepped out again. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like the air inside the car was suffocating me. I needed to get away, if only for a little while, to clear my head and think about what I wanted. I walked toward the small park near the parking lot. It was empty, except for a few birds chirping in the trees. I sat down on a bench, put my head in my hands, and let the tears flow. I felt a mix of heartbreak and anger, frustration and sadness. I hated that I was in this position, hated that I had to question everything I thought I knew about the man I loved. As I sat there, memories of our time together played in my mind. The little moments that made me fall for Lucas, his jokes, his smile, the way he'd brush my hair out of my face, suddenly felt tarnished. Was any of it real? Or had he been playing a role this entire time? A part of me wanted to believe him, to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he had really been afraid. Maybe he had just made a terrible mistake. But another part of me kept asking, if he hid this, what else could he be hiding? The doubt was like a splinter I couldn't remove, growing more painful the more I tried to ignore it. I stayed at that bench for what felt like hours, though it was probably only about half an hour. I needed to go back and face Lucas again, to tell him what I'd decided, even if I hadn't fully figured it out yet. I didn't want to leave him hanging, but I also couldn't just forgive and forget. Walking back to the car, I felt a small sense of resolve. I wasn't going to let him off the hook easily, but I wasn't ready to throw everything away either. Not yet. I would take it one step at a time, see how he handled the situation, and decide from there. When I got back, Lucas was leaning against the car, his hands in his pockets, looking more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. He straightened up when he saw me and tried to read my expression. I didn't say anything at first, just stood there, staring at him. Finally, I broke the silence. "I'm not saying it's over," I said. "But I'm not saying I'm okay with this either. I need time, Lucas. I need to figure out how I feel, and if I can move past this." He nodded slowly, his face etched with a mix of relief and apprehension. "I'll do whatever it takes," he said. "Just tell me what you need." What I needed, I wasn't entirely sure, but I knew one thing. I needed honesty. Absolute, unwavering honesty. I couldn't handle any more surprises or half-truths. If we were going to have any chance of moving forward, he'd have to give me that. Otherwise, there was no point in continuing. "Okay," I said finally. "If you're serious about fixing this, then you need to be completely open with me. No more secrets, no more hiding anything. If there's even a chance for us, I need the whole truth. Can you do that?" Lucas hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Yes, I'll tell you everything. Whatever you want to know, I'll tell you." It was a start, at least, but I still didn't know if it would be enough. Only time would tell. Over the following days, I kept my distance from Lucas. He reached out a couple of times, but I told him I needed more space. I had to sort through my feelings before we could have any serious conversations. I didn't want to rush into a decision I wasn't ready for, especially not one as life-altering as whether or not to stay in this relationship. I started taking long walks, trying to clear my head. I spent more time reading and journaling, trying to untangle the mix of emotions I was feeling. The disappointment, the hurt, the lingering affection for him, it all felt so complicated. On the one hand, I missed him. I missed the way he made me laugh, the way he cared for me. But on the other hand, I couldn't forget the betrayal. I couldn't ignore the fact that he'd kept such a huge part of his life hidden from me. One evening, I finally decided it was time to hear him out. I sent Lucas a message asking him to meet me at a quiet cafe nearby. He responded immediately, agreeing to the time I'd suggested. When I arrived, I found him already seated at a small corner table. He looked nervous, but also hopeful. As I sat down, Lucas gave me a small, hesitant smile. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, his voice soft. I nodded, not returning the smile. "I need to hear everything," I said. "No more half-truths, no more hiding things. If we're going to have any chance of moving forward, I need the full story." He took a deep breath and began. "Okay," he said. "Here's the truth. I was married before, about 5 years ago. Her name was Emily, and we met when I was still working at my old job. At first, everything seemed great. She was funny, intelligent, and we connected on so many levels. But as time went on, things changed. She became controlling, manipulative. She wanted to know where I was every second of the day, who I was talking to, what I was doing. It got to the point where I felt like I couldn't breathe. Lucas paused, running a hand through his hair. When I finally told her I couldn't do it anymore, she didn't take it well. She spread lies about me, accused me of things I never did. I lost friends, colleagues, my reputation was in shambles. I even had to leave my job because the situation became so toxic. That's when I decided to start over. I changed my name, moved to a different city, and tried to build a new life. That's when I met you. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. When we got serious, I wanted to tell you everything. I really did. But every time I thought about it, I was afraid you'd walk away. I thought if I could just leave the past behind, we could have a fresh start. I leaned back in my chair, taking it all in. His story explained a lot, but it didn't erase the fact that he hadn't trusted me enough to share it sooner. Why didn't you think I could handle it? I asked. I would have understood if you'd told me from the start. I'm not afraid of someone having a complicated past, but finding out this way, through your ID and my mom's warnings, made it feel like you didn't trust me. Lucas nodded slowly. You're right. I should have told you. I see that now. I was so afraid of losing you that I ended up doing the very thing that might push you away. I thought about his words. I could see that he regretted his decisions, that he genuinely wanted to make things right. But trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. This isn't going to be easy, I said. If we're going to move forward, it's going to take time. I need to feel like I can trust you again. I'll do whatever it takes, Lucas said. I'll answer any questions you have. Be as open as you need me to be. I just want the chance to make things right. I looked at him, trying to gauge his sincerity. I could see how much he cared about me, how desperate he was to fix what he'd broken. But I also knew that my decision couldn't be based solely on his promises. I needed to decide if I could truly forgive him, if I could let go of the hurt and rebuild that sense of security in our relationship. I'm not saying I've decided yet, I told him. I need time to see if we can rebuild what we had. But if you're serious about earning back my trust, then I'm willing to take it one step at a time. Lucas nodded, relief washing over his face. Thank you, he said. Thank you for giving me a chance. We sat there in silence for a moment, both of us feeling the weight of the conversation. It wasn't a clean resolution, but it was a start. I still had doubts, still felt a lingering sense of unease, but I also felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to move forward together. Over the next few weeks, Lucas and I took things slowly. I told him I needed more than just words. I needed his actions to show that he was serious about rebuilding trust. To his credit, he listened. He didn't try to rush me into making any decisions, and he respected my boundaries. He shared more about his past, even when it was uncomfortable for him, and he answered my questions honestly. I'd be lying if I said it was easy. Some days, I'd look at him and see the man I fell in love with. Other days, all I could think about was the lie. The doubt was still there, lurking in the back of my mind. But at least now, Lucas seemed willing to face it head-on rather than avoiding it. One afternoon, while we were sitting together in the park, he turned to me and said, I know I can't erase what I did. I know I hurt you, and I know it's going to take a long time to fix that. But I'll be here. However long it takes, I'll be here. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't ready to make any promises. Instead, I nodded, letting him know that I appreciated his effort. But even as we slowly tried to rebuild our relationship, I couldn't ignore the part of me that was still afraid. What if something else came out later? What if, down the line, I discovered another hidden truth? I wrestled with these thoughts constantly. I told myself that people deserved second chances, that no one was perfect. But I also knew that trust, once broken, was hard to restore. To help sort through my feelings, I started seeing a therapist. It was something I'd considered before but never followed through on. Now, it felt like a necessity. My sessions became a safe space where I could process everything: the betrayal, my lingering doubts, my fear of being hurt again. The therapist helped me see that it was okay to take my time, to not have all the answers right away. She reminded me that rebuilding trust was a gradual process, and that it was ultimately up to me whether I wanted to continue trying with Lucas or walk away. Around this time, I also reconnected with a few close friends I'd been distant from. Sharing what I was going through with them helped me feel less alone. They offered support, advice, and a listening ear. They didn't pressure me to make a decision one way or another. They simply let me talk, and that was exactly what I needed. As weeks turned into months, Lucas continued to prove that he was committed to earning back my trust. He was transparent about his day-to-day life, he kept no secrets, and he made an effort to be open and honest about everything. He didn't just say he wanted to fix things, he showed it. And while it didn't erase the hurt, it started to ease the doubts, little by little. One day, during one of our quiet walks in the park, I finally felt ready to address the lingering question. "Lucas," I said, stopping to look at him, I think I'm ready to try again, but I need you to understand something. Trust isn't just about being honest from now on, it's about consistency. It's about showing me every day that I can rely on you. Are you ready for that?" He met my gaze, his expression earnest. "I'm ready. I'll do whatever it takes, Sarah. I mean it." It was the first time in a long time that I felt like we were on the same page. It wasn't a perfect solution, and it didn't guarantee that everything would work out. But it was a start. We were both willing to put in the effort to make things better, to build something stronger than what we had before. In the weeks that followed, we took small steps forward. We didn't rush into anything. We kept communicating, kept working on rebuilding the foundation of our relationship. There were still challenges, and there were still moments of doubt, but we faced them together. And gradually, I began to feel like maybe, just maybe, we could come out of this stronger than we were before.